Hi everyone, and welcome back to Jola Speaks. Thank you for having me once again today. Today we're going to continue our interview with Dr. Esther Longe, and we're going to be discussing the topic, God uses everything. God uses everything. There are a lot of time where we feel God has called us and wondering, okay, but God, you called me to do this. What about all the knowledge I've acquired in X, Y, Z? Why is it not being used, right? Or we think that it cannot be used. So maybe, for example, you've studied so many degrees and then God was calling you to be a pastor and wondering, but God, what was the point? Why did let me go through school and read and all that and come and be a pastor? You could have taught me, I was going to Bible school. So this particular episode dives into that, right? Esther, has 2 masters, she has a PhD as well, and she's done a lot in the academia space, and just learning from her experience of how she's used every single experience, all the knowledge that she has acquired, even in her ministry and in her coaching and her life today. So join me as we learn and dive in.
Next I will discuss is actually God uses everything. And I feel like an amazing example of that. I know that initially in life, you wanted to be a CMO, right? A chief marketing officer, right? You had your life planned at 15. You were like this, and because you're a techy personality, everything's planned, structured in a particular way and all that. And you went ahead, you did 2 masters, you did a PhD, you were excellent in the academic world. And then when you finished all that, God has to come to serve him in ministry. How has that been? Because you wonder, so Lord, but why did you ask me to do all this, Master? Why did I do all this? But why? How did you go through the process of, accepting God's invitation? And 2, now realize that God is doing those same things that, you had done, in academics, in your work, and all you had done, even in the ministry, even the things you're doing, your coaching and all that.
So I used to call myself the chairperson of the Stubborn Goats Society. So we're not going to put it like this. It was so romantic that God said, oh, come. And I came. I said, oh, yes, here I am. Send me. No. I did Jonah 1 or 2 or 3 times. Do you understand? I remember even being in the dentist's office in 2017. And for 30 minutes, I was looking at this form and I could not feel just one line. I could not feel it. I was like, what was that? Occupation. Remember, I'm not a pastor. I cannot see how. Imagine, I was there 30 minutes trying to figure out what to write. It was such a tough time. And I remember God called me, I'm going to say 2016 after our conference, right? So it would be 2017.
It's a funny story as well. Yeah, you did prophets first, then he comes.
And it wasn't until March 2019 that I think that I finally surrendered. But even when I say that, there's still iterations of Jiget not really surrendering. Because every time I feel like I surrender to something, he opens something else. And I'm just like, sir, don't be annoyed. I'm not getting used to this one. What is this one again? You understand? So, but that's God. And God doesn't waste anything. So I find that in the way my mind works. So for example, if you go through a PhD process, the way you think changes. So even the way I read my Bible is reflective of the fact that I've done a PhD. The way I research. When people say, oh, your Bible studies, is because I have done research. So when I'm reading, I'm not just reading and saying, oh, I'm familiar with this passage. I'm like, no, I'm acting like I've never seen that verse before. I'm dismarking it word by word. Do you understand? Because of my training. Even how I coach. Do you understand? How God doesn't waste anything. So a lot of times people are so afraid, oh, God is calling me. Hey, God, he wants me to go and be a missionary. But God knows how he created you. My husband has an uncle who was there on Friday, who is a missionary. And when he's talking about being a missionary, his face lights up. He loves it so much. So we now realize that God has imprinted inside of him that missionary trait. He didn't imprint it inside of me. He imprinted baby girl for Jesus. You understand? So you get, like, he made me. And it's interesting because people that are drawn to me by the things that he has imprinted inside of me. So a lot of times when God is calling us, we're like, oh God, what are you going to ask me to do? But whatever is going to ask you to do is already imprinted inside of you. Psalm 139 says that your days were written in his books even before the foundation of the earth. Meaning that before you were a thought in your parents' mind, he had already crafted out your life. So a lot of times the frustrations that you are facing is because you are not bringing that life back to God and saying, Lord, I'm an actor in your script. What should be my agenda per day? And then when you now bring your life back to God, then you're now like, oh my God, there's actually this whole wonderful life of influence or blessing, or you get responsibility, and that you have actually laid out for me before the foundation of the earth. So God knows you more than you know yourself. Bring it back to Him, and He will give you a life that you never even dreamt of.
Yes, on that point actually, for someone that's going through that phase now, where they are that struggle, that tussle with God, what will you encourage them to do?
Cry very well. It's true. It's good. No, cry. Because I cried. Do you understand? And as you are crying, something is dying. It's called the flesh, right? Because you have your idea of how your life should be, and God is calling you to something else. You had your life planned out. This is what you wanted, and God is saying, "No, I know the thoughts I have towards you, thoughts of good and not evil, to bring you to my expected end." So you are like, Lord, this is how I thought my life should be. So you cry it out. Do you get? Let the flesh die, and then you surrender to God's plan and purpose for your life. And then as He unveils it, you now realize that, wow, do you get? It's not always going to be smooth sailing. So, you and I walk together, you have journeyed together. So you know that there were times that were super tough. Well, like, God, is this really what you called me for? 1, 2. But with the benefit of hindsight, we see, wow, do you get? God is God.
On that same topic, and going to submission, that word can be a very tough word, where you say that journeying with God, we are continually submitted to God every single day of our lives. And honestly, in many cases, one doesn't want to. It's tough. It's not easy. It's like, as you said, dying to flesh every single day, dying for it every single day. How has your submission journey been with God?
Journey of death. Have you ever realized that? Have you heard this line before? With total submission to the will of God. Yes, have you heard that? Where do you hear it? Where do you hear it? I can't remember. So obviously you hear it at funeral. Also, what He has died. With gratitude, but total submission to the will of. At this point, we announce the passing away of blah, 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 blah.
No, you have no. It's something.
So total submission comes when you allow yourself to die. And you now realize that it's no longer I that lives, but Christ that lives. And it sounds cliche, but it is what is necessary. Because God's not going to fight, not going to struggle with you. Not going to fight you. The Bible in Revelation 3:20 says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man will hear me and will open the door, I will come in and I will sit with him, I will dine with him." You now say, "But why are you knocking, sir? You still have to break the door." He will not break the door. He's giving us free will for that. This circle. So you now find, and the Bible says, "My spirit not always contend with man." So it means that you have to make up your mind. Is it God's agenda for my life, or is it my own agenda? And honestly, that process takes a lot of head banging. You must get to the end of yourself, to the end of the rope. You must hit your head against the wall, to the point where you have headache and you're like, this is not working. For you to now say, actually, Lord, I surrender. Now, it's not going to work. I have to get to that point. The sooner you actually realign and say, God, actually, whatever you want from my life it's what I want, the easier. But for some of us that were stubborn, we had to give ourselves headache, first, get to the end of our rope and realize that rope was never going to lead us anywhere.
How do you discern if you have truly submitted to God, or you're still going through the motions?
You will know. You will know. You will know. People can be clapping for you. And that's the area. People can be clapping for you. Oh my God, you're so obedient. So you will know. Because all God has to do is just highlight something. And the way your heart reacts to it, you know that there's still something there. There's still something. You will know. You can lie to people. People can lie to you, jealous than, but you cannot lie to yourself. You cannot lie to God. When the Lord puts His finger on something, you will know if you are ready. And so your prayer must be, Father, help me. I cannot do this by myself. I give it to you. Because sometimes we think that the submission journey is based on our ability. No. All God needs is your yes, and then He will carry you. He will help you. One of my favorite stories is the story of Gideon in Judges chapter 6. And when we need Gideon, he is threshing wheat in a wine press. So he's doing the right thing in the wrong place, right? And he's doing that because of fear, and the angel of the Lord appears to him and says, you mighty man or valor. And he's looking like, sir, who is it? Hey, it's not the two of us here. Do you miss road? Do you know what I mean? And he responds and says, if God is so good, then why is this happening? So that was his honest conversation. And the perspective that was given was, you are the solution. So he didn't answer him. The angel of the Lord did not answer him and start explaining that, actually, the children of Israel saying this is what opened the door. Yeah. No, what he did was saying, you think that the problem or the solution is outside, but you are actually the solution. And they went through a process where God spent time to build him up. First thing that happened was Gideon brought his offering, and the angel of the Lord brought out his rod, and fire came out and consumed the offering. Now, if you see that kind of thing, you understand, you will now start to fly that, wow, God is backing me up. But that encounter was what was necessary for him to take the first step, which was to dismantle the altar in his father's house. And he did that in the dark. Now, this is somebody that thought he was the least in his father's house. When he was going, he had 10 people that backed him up, meaning that you are never as low as you think you are. You are never as without influence as you think that you are. There's always at least one person looking up to you for advice. There's always one person that you can influence. And in Gideon's case, he had 10. He dismantled the altar, and see, another thing that we must know in that story is that when God gives direction, he also, if you are patient, he will give you strategy. He told him what to do and how to do it. So when you dismantle the altar, you now turn that into an altar to me, and you sacrifice on that altar a heifer and a whatever. I told him what to do. He gave him step-by-step instructions. Now he did that. When you do that kind of thing, Jola, what do you think would happen? People will clap for, who the black, who's this guy? Oh, wow, who's your guy? Julia, he will like, yeah, that's me. But he woke up in the morning to people saying, in the whole village, who did this? Bring him out so that we can kill him. He said, how about us how that we brought Julia? Why do you want to kill me? But God always presents a way of escape. Why is this important to note? Number one, when God gives you an instruction, a lot of times what hinders people or what paralyzes people is that God gives an instruction and they expect that they understand what the outcome should be. And then when the outcome doesn't follow their plan, from God, they get upset with God. Maybe I didn't hear properly. Maybe God is not the one that led me, and then doubt enters. But God asked you to do something. He didn't tell you what was going to be the response. But he always will create a way of escape. And so what happened was that it was Gideon's father that said, be bow, let him fight for himself. And so what happened was that then all of a sudden, he has 32,000 people following him. I was like, where are we going? Then after that, the Lord now says, you're going to face the Midianites. And then he now has to now say, okay, he does the feast, right? If it's you, then let there be water on the floor, no water on the carpet, But can you ask ourselves a question? What was God's response every time he asked for a sign?
He asked for clarity again.
No. Every time that Gideon asked for a sign.
Oh, God, you always. God got by the sign.
Okay. So when we have been taught, number one, first, that, it is a lack of faith to ask God for a sign. Is that correct? Did God say to Gideon, you are a foolish guy? Did you see fire come out of the Ozeba? Did you see what I did? No. Every time he needed reassurance, God provided. Why? So when people preach and say that Gideon was a coward, I say, if they tell you tomorrow, Jola, that you're going to be president of America, not even Nigeria or the UK where you live, what will be your response? So when they tell somebody that believes that he's the least in his father's house, that he's going to be the deliverer of his people, do you not think that he needed as many reassurances as he needed? And God was able to provide it because he knew that his faith needed to be built up. In fact, in Judges chapter 7, after God had reduced his army from 32,000 to 300, he said, I know that you are afraid. It's God that's telling him now. I said, I know that you are afraid. Go and get your servant and go to the camp of the Midianites. And that's when, he encounters the person that said they had a dream, and a loaf of bread hits the tent, and the other person said, oh, that's Gideon, the son of Joash. So imagine they said Gideon, say maybe there are plenty of Gideons in Moab. In Midian, exactly, so that he knew that it was him, and that's where he got the courage, and that's how he was able to do what God required him to do. What does that mean to us? It means that a lot of times, the things that God will ask us to do, if they are God's and if they are from God, will be God-sized visions, meaning that we cannot do it in our own strength. Yeah. He wants us to do it in reliance on Him, dependent, reliance and relationship. And so everything that we need, He will provide. He just needs us to walk in tandem with him. We say, Lord, I can't do it. I can't see it. He will help you. He will do what is necessary because he wants you to truly be the walking, talking billboard that he has called you to be, of his goodness and his godness.
If I love when you said, God always creates a way of escape. I was telling yesterday about how God asked him to go police meeting at the to a transaction. And that was a very difficult transaction for me. And each time, things came up, God always provided an ability to just walk. And that's because I never even thought about it, that way. Thank you for that.
Thank you for watching today. I know it's one topic that people always wonder and ponder. Oh, if God calls me today, would it mean that I have to drop everything that I know and just what does that look like? What does that mean? But I'm happy that Esther is able to show us a good picture of how it looks like. It's not easy, but it definitely is doable. And as we are submitting to him every single day, we are learning more about God's ways, and we're going to see that we're even using the same things that we've learned in our various aspects of life, even in what God has called us to do. If you are in a space where you are sensing that, oh wow, God, you're coming to do this, but what about all things I have done or all things I've acquired? What's going to happen to them? Trust God and know that he definitely has your best interest at heart, and his will and his process may not be something that you might understand yet, but be assured and trust that he definitely bring out the very best in you for his purpose and his will. So thank you for listening to me today, and God bless you, and I love you. Bye.